What up, Lost Boys? Here we are for our Week 12 preview, Week 11 recap of our Fantasy Festivus this week. We got a lot to unpack, so let's get started. Before we get into this week's games, let's go over the recap from last week. And ooh, it was a crazy week for the first time all year. Cass and Josh both lost on the same week, and they got their asses smoked. Starting with our first place team, Cass, injury bug after injury bug after injury bug, hitting him all season, and he kept crushing it. He kept crushing it. People kept putting up their lowest point total of the week against Cass, and he kept putting up a shit ton of points no matter who he plugged in. This week, it all came crumbling down. He didn't have Cooper Kupp this week. His guys didn't necessarily perform, but that wasn't the story. The story was the freight train known as Romanowski coming down the aisle. Hottest team in the league right now. Every button he clicks is hitting right now. He is a scary, scary team. We'll see if it rolls into the playoffs. It's looking like it is. Fields kind of hurt his shoulder, but he has Tony Pollard rocking. He has Jeff Wilson on his bench in case someone gets hurt. Horse Turd Harry, we know how he gets rolling later into the season. So Roman is hitting on all cylinders right now. Beware. Cass, like I mentioned, he gained up a lot of points. He gained up the record, so he's probably going to be safe going into the playoffs. But his team has just been decimated with injuries. We'll see how he responds. He still has the best fantasy asset in the game, and his name is Travis Kelce. He put up 30-something points again in the tight end position. Holy moly, he still lost by about 75 points. But still, Cass is still our first-place team. Looking at a couple other matchups. Well, Josh, the second-place team, I mentioned he lost. Josh has 3 losses this year. Denny's been 2 of them. Something about this matchup just doesn't sit well with Josh. Denny got a good start last week. We were seeing how the Tennessee freaking Green Bay game was going to go. Usually Thursday Night Football's take down. Well, Denny hit it on the nub. Christian Watson somehow got 2 touchdowns out of 3 catches. Rodgers got almost 20 points, one of his better outings of the year. And Jones got a good amount of points. So Denny started the week off great, and he kept it rolling throughout. When Daniel Jones is outscoring Jalen Hurts, it's going to be a good week for Denny. On the flip side, Josh's team, he's put a lot of chips into the Vikings this year. It's worked out for him most time. This was not one of those weeks. The Vikings were dead this week. Cousins, Jefferson, the Cowboys completely shut them down. They did absolutely nothing. This was Josh's first week without Dallas Goedert. I know that may not seem like a lot, but Dallas Goedert was, I think, the number 2 tight end going into this week behind Kelce. So he's hurt and he's on the IR right now. But hopefully Josh this week gets Jamar Chase back to replace some of his turds. But bottom line is Josh's team took a dump and Denny's team performed. Denny, huge win, kept him in the slim playoff hopes. So we'll see if he can get it. Ryan, the other playoff team, lost to Jace somehow. Jace's team's been awful all year. He somehow comes out with a victory over Ryan, who got McCaffrey back, who got Saquon back. He had Hopkins. Ryan was in a huge deficit going into that Sunday Night Football, and I guess Monday Night Football, and all of his guys did dirty. If it wasn't such a blowout, Hopkins would have gotten enough to had Ryan come back, but he couldn't pull himself out of the huge hole that he'd gotten himself into. Barkley ended up taking a dump somehow. They didn't give him any points. And he touches on the goal line. So Ryan takes a surprising L, which is rough for him because he needed to stay in pace. And then Justin, the other guy that was in the playoffs push, he loses to Cal. Cal, whose team was dead on arrival about 20 years ago, comes in and smashes Barreto. I mean, you were watching Red Zone. Every single touchdown seemed to be going for Cal left and right. Cal's team seems like every few weeks when he hits, he hits. When he doesn't, he dies. But Cal's putting up 177 points, beats Justin by 40. Justin's been hit with injury bug, with Juju. Cal even lost Mixon early in that game, still put almost 180 points up. So Cal takes down Justin. Huge knock against Justin. Our standings are very similar to how they were. Ryan and Matt flip spots, 3rd and 4th, but the same teams are all in the playoffs. Justin's lingering there in the 5th spot. He's in a tricky spot because he's about 80 points behind Ryan. And so he needs to not just tie him, but he needs to get a game ahead of him. We'll see if he can manage it going into this week. The other games, you had Patty playing Tim. Loses! this has been just a disaster of a season for Pat. He is now treading water and maybe has a chance to get last place. Never thought that'd be possible. Always thought Tim would be last place going into the year. I mean, with the debacle of the week that he didn't start his players, to just Tim taking dumps when it comes to the waiver wire, and still he's at 3-8, which is the same record as Pat. I mean, and Pat knows his shit, just, so it's crazy. Right now they're tied. Pat has more points than Tim, but now Pat has to watch out for the last place. Tim, congrats on the victory. You're still chugging along. You're still gonna play spoiler, and so it's just we'll see what happens this week. Maybe you can do it again. So let's move ahead to this week's games. We got a lot of matchups. I know it's crazy. We only have, I think, 3 games left before playoffs. We're in week 12, so we have 12, 13, 14. 12, 13, 14. So we have 3 weeks left, 3 games left. Playoffs start in week 15, Super Bowl's in week 16. So 3 games left, guys. We got the Dirk 3 right there. Cal, you like that one? We're going to start with Josh versus Justin this week. Guy in second place, and Justin's in 5th. He's fighting for the playoff spots. He has to have this victory. I mentioned before he's lowest in points among the top 5 teams, and his team is still on the injury. We'll see if Juju comes back. He desperately needs Juju to come back. He really does. He didn't have a lot of depth. Justin's team's still pretty good. He has pretty good projections, but he needs Juju to come back. He needs Dameon Pierce, Patterson. He needs those guys to actually get touchdowns. But we'll see if he does it. On the flip side, Josh, he hopefully, maybe, looking like he might get Jamar Chase back. All of his main guys have already taken their byes. So for the most part, Josh is, healthy. We'll see if he can keep rolling. I'm going to go with Josh this week. A big knock against Justin. He takes it again for his playoffs put, but I just think Josh's team is better. He has top-tier talent, especially if he gets Jamar Chase back. I mean, Kamara and Chubb haven't done anything. They're due to do something. Jefferson took a dump last week. Cousins took a dump last week. So all of his guys are due for a bounce back this week. We'll see if Justin can stay clear. His quarterbacks are going to be dirty with Mahomes like it is every week, but I'm going to go with Josh on this one. Next, we're going to go with Jace versus Lama Drama. So Jace takes the dub last week, which... Hold on. That's not right. Jace played Llama last week. Why did that say that? Got it. Never mind. I compared Jace and Tim's team a lot. They're both very similar in the toilet bowl, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Llama's playing Tim this week, and he desperately needs a W because he lost to Jace unexpectedly last week. He's still fighting for this playoff spot. His team is awesome. I've talked about Ryan's ceiling all year. McCaffrey, Saquon. He got Hopkins back. He's got all these guys. A very, very strong team, and he needs to roll into the playoffs. But he has to get there first. He thought Jace should have been an easy dub. He's looking at Tim now as an easy dub. Well, Tim took out Pat last week. You never know what's going to happen when fantasy. So Ryan's team's coming on strong. He's got through all of his bye weeks for the most part. Tim has 2. I'm going to go with Ryan this week just because it's Tim and he's terrible and his team's not very good. And I think Ryan's team is really good. But it is fantasy. You never know what can happen. I'm going to get Ryan with the victory this week. He stays in that 4th place spot. And more importantly, if Justin ends up losing to Josh, Ryan basically gets a 2-game lead on Justin because he beats him in points. And after this week, there'll only be 2 games remaining. So this week could be almost telling what the final playoff spots are going to be. But we'll see. Any given Sunday, right, boys? 3rd game of the week, we're going Cass versus Denny. Denny, with the victory last week against Josh, keeps his slim playoff hopes alive. He's 5-6. He is still behind all those top 4 guys in points by about 60 or 70 points. But if Ryan stumbles this week against Tim in a fluke matchup, and somehow Denny takes out Cass, who I just got done saying, Cass is limping. He is limping into the playoffs. Denny could pull this victory out. Ryan could stumble, and you never know. Denny's only goal right now is to put up as many points as he can. He needs Green Bay to do good every single week. They did good for him last week. We'll see if they do good for him this week. He easily could take this victory. I actually think Denny is going to take this victory. I have him beating Cass this week. I have Cass losing 2 in a row. Green Bay's playing Philadelphia. One of two things is either going to happen. Either that Philly defense is going to shut down Rodgers, but I don't think that's going to happen. I actually foresee this game being a high-scoring affair. Philly's kind of been reeling a little bit the last couple. They lost 2 weeks ago. They had a close game against a turd team last week. Rodgers, he might want to get things rolling, get this shit off his back as he washed, all this different stuff. But I have a feeling Denny's going to get a lot of points in that game and take the victory from Cass, who's going to lose 2 in a row. Fourth game. Actually, fourth game. We're going to go with Jace versus Cal. I mentioned the Turd Bowl earlier. This is the Turd Bowl. Cal somehow is 5-6. I've been down on his team all year, but he's scrounged together 5 wins, which is only 1 less than Ryan and Justin from the playoffs. Like, saying that out loud doesn't make sense. It's like saying cool jean shorts, but that's Cal. Cal is the cool jean shorts guy right now. He's technically one game out of the playoffs. Now he has no points at all. I mean, we're talking 1,455 points. 1,455 points. He's 130 points behind Ryan. So Cal needs to score so many points these next 3 weeks, but he has a chance. He's got to beat Jace. Has to start there. Jace is going to be his easiest matchup the last 3 games. Cal has to get this dub. And we've seen crazier things happen. You guys remember like 10 years ago, I think it was like Blake or someone in our league, they had to lose. Someone else had to win and outscore him by like 110 points. And it happened. So nothing's out of the realm of possibilities. Cal still has a chance. Cal and Denny are still swimming in the back. So we'll keep an eye on them. I'm going to go with Cal this week. I just think, Lamar has been taking dumps pretty much with Lamar standards. He's going to come back. I think he's due for a big game. I think Mixon's going to be back as well. But Devontae Adams, I've been high on Devontae Adams all year, and he's cashing in. He's cashing in. He's cashing in. So I think Cal's ceiling is a little bit higher than Jace's, and I think he takes the dub this week. 5th final game, the Titty versus the Freight Train Learning Computer. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Matt's on a roll right now. He is just obliterating everyone left and right. His guys are clicking. He's scoring. He's not dealing with any injuries. I'm assuming Fields is going to be okay. He is crushing everyone. Here comes Pat. Just scored 100 points and lost to Tim. I mean, you can't make this shit up. But when you look at Pat's team, and I sound like a broken record, I say it every fucking video, Pat's team looks good. You got Dak, you got Brady, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Josh Jacobs, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Miles Sanders, you got Mike Williams, you got all these guys, Alan Lazard, the number 1 wide receiver for this. Pat's team looks good. Pat's team looks good, but, there's a difference between looking good and being good. And he just hasn't been very good this year. And it sucks because he's going to miss the playoffs this year, and he might get last place. But it even sucks more because he's going against Matt this week. And everyone is rooting for Pat this week. Justin's rooting for Pat. Denny's rooting for... Everyone's rooting for Pat this week. I don't think he's going to get there. I love Pat's team. I really do. I think he drafted a good team. I just think he's kind of had some bad luck this year. But Matt's team is on a roll. I mean, Derrick Henry's crushing it. Tony Pollard's crushing it. David Montgomery, he's getting the reverse injury jinx. Khalil Herbert goes to the IR. Montgomery's getting all the touches, so that's good for him. Keenan Allen's finally back from injury, so he has another number 1 wideout. Waddle's banging. Chris Godwin's getting healthy. Not to mention his 2 quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, the runners galore. Matt's team is scary. He needs to take care of business this week against Pat. That almost would seal him a deal into the playoffs with 2 games remaining. He is now 2nd in points. He passed Josh in points. He's right behind Cass in points with this monster 200-point game he just put up. So I think Matt keeps the train rolling. I think he moves to 8-4. I think he stays in 3rd place, depending on what happens. We'll see. but I think Matt gets the victory. So here we are, guys, the last 3 weeks of the season. We still have guys like Cal, guys like Denny still fighting for playoffs. Justin is right there as well. Everyone has to try to win. Everyone has to try to keep their momentum rolling to try to give them a sliver of hope going into that last week. This week is huge. People got to take the dubs. So we'll see what happens. Don't forget this week, guys, we get 3 games on Thanksgiving. So a lot of fantasy stuff is going to be, I don't want to say decided, but a lot of fantasy points are going to be scored on Thanksgiving. So at least we'll have something entertaining while we have our bellies stuffed with turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and stuff. So it should be fun, boys. I hope you guys all have a phenomenal Thanksgiving for the ones that I'm not going to see. Love you all. Go Fantasy, go Chiefs, go Bears. Stay healthy. Love you guys.